Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into the absolute ultimate what-if thought experiment. We're going to look at one of the most fascinating questions in the entire cosmos. What actually happens if we find a new home out there in the stars? So get ready, because we're about to explore the thrilling, kind of terrifying, and totally awe-inspiring scenario of discovering a world that isn't just like ours, but actually beats it. Picture this for a second. Scientists point the world's most powerful telescope deep into the dark of space, and they discover something completely impossible: a planet. And it looks incredibly like Earth. We're talking sprawling oceans, swirling white clouds, dense green forests, and a nice, thick, protective atmosphere. But there's one massive, shocking difference here. It might actually be better than Earth. Okay, let's really dive into this. The big question staring us right in the face is, would humanity actually leave Earth and just move there? Now, before we all go packing our bags, I want to be perfectly clear. While we are definitely going to rely on real scientific principles of planetary discovery today, this entire journey is a captivating, totally fictional scenario. We haven't actually found this utopia yet. But exploring what would happen if we did reveals some incredibly fascinating truths about real science and, honestly, about ourselves. Section 1. The impossible discovery. So, how would this incredible breakthrough actually unfold? Well, let's move to this timeline and see how it builds, because it's a very meticulous, step-by-step process. First, our most powerful space telescopes detect a faint anomaly, right? Just a tiny shadow crossing a distant star. Next up is the orbit check, where astronomers carefully observe the planet's path just to make sure it's in a stable orbit. Then comes the real magic: light analysis. By studying the starlight passing through the planet's atmosphere, scientists can literally read its chemical makeup. And finally, confirmation. The data comes back showing the first undeniable signs of Earth-like traits. Can you imagine? The scientific community would be absolutely electrified. But all of that data leads to one massive, nail-biting question. How could scientists actually know if something is alive on a planet that is trillions of miles away? I mean, we can't exactly just send a probe over to check. We have to look for very specific clues from afar. Section 2. Better than Earth. This right here is the ultimate cosmic checklist. For a planet to even be considered a candidate for life, let alone human life, it absolutely must have liquid water. That's the baseline for survival. It needs a suitable, breathable atmosphere, a stable temperature so those oceans don't just freeze solid or boil away, and a solid rocky surface to actually stand on. It also has to sit at just the right distance from its star, which you've probably heard called the Goldilocks zone. And finally, it needs a good mix of useful elements and chemicals. Basically, these are the non-negotiable scientific requirements for us to even stand a chance. And this brilliantly illustrates the shocking difference of our fictional discovery. Just look at the comparison. On Earth, we have a normal but sometimes pretty erratic climate. The new planet, a perfectly comfortable, mild climate across massive, massive regions. Earth has devastating natural disasters. The new planet boasts a highly stable environment with barely any extreme events. And where Earth is facing squeezed, limited resources, this new world has plenty of fresh water, cleaner air, huge oceans, and way more usable land. It is, for all intents and purposes, a paradise. So, if this place really existed, would humanity have finally found a second home? It is super tempting to just shout yes and start building the rockets, but hold on a second. Finding a habitable planet does absolutely not mean humans can just immediately pack up and move. Section 3. The journey to survive. Because utopian dreams tend to crash pretty hard into the gritty reality of space travel. Now, what's really interesting about this is the sheer, terrifying scale of the challenge. The massive distance alone means the travel time could literally take generations. You're exposing the crew to deadly space radiation the entire way. Plus, how on Earth, or off Earth, I should say, do you secure enough food and water for decades? How do you continuously generate breathable oxygen? And then you have to cope with debilitating gravity changes on the human body, attempt a totally perilous landing on an alien world, and somehow build a settlement entirely from scratch. It is just a monumental, almost impossible obstacle. But let's say we do it. Overcoming those obstacles would culminate in the very first human mission. Imagine this playing out like a giant cinematic movie. You'd have years, maybe even decades, of exhausting preparation by the absolute brightest minds on the planet. Then, astronauts finally entering this massive, incredibly powerful spaceship. They endure a long, deeply isolating journey through the blackness of space. Eventually, and we're talking generations later here, They approach the new planet and see those pristine oceans and clouds right through the window for the very first time. And finally, that incredibly emotional, terrifying moment when humans actually touch down and safely land on another world. Section 4. Who gets to go? Now, if a perfect world was found, it would instantly trigger some extremely complex geopolitics. I mean, how might tickets actually be distributed when you factor in human nature? This thought experiment breaks it down. Would world governments compete and just claim 50% of the spots for their own elite personnel? Would billionaires and private space companies secure 40% simply because they funded the ships, leaving perhaps just a tiny 10% slice as some sort of global lottery for the rest of humanity? Would countries literally fight over who gets to own this new planet? It's a heavy thought. It really forces us to ask, would everyone on Earth really have a fair chance to move? History tells us pretty clearly that massive leaps forward usually come with harsh realities of inequality. So it's highly likely that only a very select few would ever actually get to leave. Section 5. The hidden dangers. Because for those lucky few who do actually make it, what if the planet looks perfectly idyllic from space, but something unseen is hiding right down there on the surface? You see, a planet can be technically habitable, but still completely hostile to humans. Explorers could step out and immediately face dangerous alien microorganisms that our immune systems have absolutely zero defense against. There could be unknown, highly toxic chemicals in the soil. There might be unexpected atmospheric problems that only trigger during certain seasons, or hidden environmental dangers that we simply couldn't detect from our telescopes back home. And of course, there is always the potential for strange life forms. If scientists do detect signs of life, we have to understand what that actually means. Because life covers a massive range. It could just be simple microscopic microbial life, which, like we said, could be totally deadly to us. It could be alien plants or animals. Or, in the most extreme fictional possibility, it could be actual intelligent life. So, the crucial point is this. What would actually happen if humanity discovered that we were not alone? Even if it's just a planet covered in alien bacteria, finding out that Earth isn't the only spark of life in the universe would change human history, religion, and our entire philosophy forever. Nothing would be the same. The final question, would you leave? We've looked at the massive cosmic scale of all this, but let's bring it back down to a deeply personal choice. On one side, you have Earth. Yes, it certainly has its problems, but it also has your family, a rich human history, beautiful existing cities, vibrant cultures, and an ecosystem that is perfectly tailored to our exact biology. On the other side, the new planet. It's pristine, sure, but you'd be living in a tiny, isolated scientific settlement. You'd face entirely unknown dangers. You'd be building a civilization totally from scratch in an incredibly alien environment. Earth is extraordinarily valuable precisely because it is already our home. I want to let the weight of this really sink in. Finding another Earth might be one of humanity's greatest discoveries. But finding a better Earth could create one of humanity's biggest decisions. It's not just about the science anymore. It's about what we genuinely value as a species. So, I'm going to leave you with this final thought for today's explainer. If scientists offered you a one-way ticket to a planet better than Earth, would you take it? Honestly, would you leave absolutely everything you know behind just for the chance to be one of the first humans on a brand new world? I really want to know what you would choose, so please tell us your answer down in the comments. And hey, if you enjoyed diving into this wild scenario with me today, make sure to like this explainer, hit subscribe, and turn on that notification bell so you never miss out on more mind-blowing science. Until next time, keep looking up.